Next, we recognize Ms. Ademola-Adelehin. If you could give your testimony, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Co-Chairman Hot Green and McGovern, members of the Lantos Commission, and distinguished guests. It's an honor to be here today, all the way from Abuja, to join this critical conversation about the protracted violent conflicts involving farmers and herders in Nigeria. I am a conflict analyst. I work with Search for Common Ground, one of the largest conflict transformation and peace building organization in Nigeria and around the world. I have analyzed and worked with communities ravaged by farmer-herder conflict in Nigeria for over a decade. My testimony alludes my experience and some of what Search is doing in the field, but my views are mine. And I would like to ask that my written testimony enter into record.
That will be included. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just give a brief personal experience, and I would like to also use this testimony to highlight 4 latest dynamics of the conflict. I will cite 3 examples of current efforts and opportunities, and I'll also give 4 suggestions on how United States and our government can support Nigeria to address the root causes and the drivers of this conflict, as well as mitigate and develop economic growth that is good for Nigeria and our partners. My first experience seeing the impact of farmer-herder conflict was in 2005, when I met a group of women in Jos Plateau State who had just experienced the brunt of farmer-herder conflict. I listened to their harrowing tales and of loss of family members, of injury, sexual violence, betrayal, displacement, and especially hopelessness and helplessness. But nevertheless, they sought healing from their traumatic experience, and they also were optimistic about their contribution to bring about peace to their communities. And that impacted me greatly. Permit me to make 5 brief observations about some of the drivers of violent conflicts. Some of the speakers already said some, so I will skip those ones. Number 1, there are social drivers. And this is the intrusion of ethno-religious identities and interests in this farmer-herder conflict. And this basically is neither an ethnic conflict, neither is it a religious conflict, but a result of competition for resources, for arable land, for water point, and also which has led to a lot of violent reactions. And specifically, issues of crop damages, attack on animals, which were in the early 1970s seen as accidental by both farmers and herders, but because of the alteration in their relationship, are being seen as deliberate and provocative that needs violent response. There are economic drivers, which is the increased demand for cattle and also increase in the price of cattle. In the last 2 decades, at least 40% increase in the size of herds in Nigeria and about 400% increase in the price of a cow in Nigeria. And this has led to increased interest in cattle industry, larger herds owned by wealthy individuals that are neither Fulanis, but who have hired people to really help them herd these animals, and also increase in criminal activities, as already mentioned. And the 3rd factor is technological, and access to fertilizers and other innovations have created incentives for farmers and herders not to even worry themselves about cultivating harmonious relationship that they used to have. And again, extensive deforestation and degradation has also continued to move herders from the core north, even as far as Central African Republic, to further Nigeria in the Niger Delta region, where we're recording violence. And again, the last one is the government's over-reliance on security response. And what this has done is that it has breached the trust between communities and these groups. And these military responses, most times, they are either late or they are perceived as ineffective in addressing and apprehending offenders and prosecuting them. And in some cases, even the military has been alleged or been culpable, or even targeting civilians and other issues. Now, I would like to underscore 3 current efforts and opportunities to mitigate this violence. First, civil society groups, including SEARCH, are implementing community-based peace and security initiatives for more proactive response to farmer-elder conflicts in Nigeria. And through this platform that brings together traditional institutions, religious institutions, women's groups, youth groups, government institutions, a lot of efforts and successes have been recorded. For example, it has facilitated a situation where farmers and herders have agreed on actions to de-escalate violence, and one of it is allowing at least 30 feet between the farm and the road to allow large herds to move without encroaching on farmlands, which has already de-escalated a lot of conflict in that particular community in Nasarawa State. And again, some media and community groups are also working to build trust and cultural understanding between the pastoralists and the farmers. A typical farmer does not fully understand the cultural heritage and identity of the Fulanis, neither do the Fulani fully understand those ones of the Birams, Anaguta, and Afizere in places like Plateau State. And what is fundamental is that not all Fulanis are herders, neither are all cattle owners Fulanis, but there is this demonization of the identity of Fulanis. And beyond the discussions, there are other events for cultural understanding, cultural festivals, and also different things to further humanize the different identity that have been demonized and demonized to continue to perpetuate the cycle of the violence. Number 3 is investment in agriculture and cattle value chain development, which is a shared economic interest for peace and stability. The current rain-fed seasonal farming is not sufficient to sustain the agricultural practices of farmers. Neither is the movement of cattle from one point to the other in search of pastures and water points also sustainable, because research has shown that it reduces the quality and quantity of both the meat and the meal, and is not viable for economic purposes. And again, there are few investments in agriculture and livestock value chain, but they are largely inadequate to meet the need and opportunity and that is existing in this kind of investment. And so by investing in agricultural development and improvement is also a way of encouraging and growing, creating jobs, and so on and so forth. Finally, I would like to offer some recommendations to the US Congress about how the United States can improve its relationship with Nigeria to address farmer-elder conflicts. Number 1, the US should support politically and financially a holistic and proactive strategies to address the root causes and drivers of violent elder-farmer conflict in Nigeria. Because the current government's approach is largely reactive and unable to prevent outbreak of violence or escalation and even re-escalation of existing violent conflicts. And secondly, the US should technically support communities and also financially community-led people-to-people approaches as sustainable method for conflict transformation in the Middle Belt region of Nigeria. And this is the need for communities that are largely experience this to better imbibe the way to react non-violently. In the Middle Belt, there is some capacity being built, but further south Nigeria and the Niger Delta, where more incidences are occurring, there is the need to invest in those areas. Number 3, investment in sustainable agricultural and livestock production initiatives should be prioritized. And this will generate employment for unemployed youths and unemployable youths that has been caught in the cycle of violence. And lastly, there's the need to encourage Nigeria government to maintain operational space for local and international civil society organizations, NGOs, religious bodies, to adapt and respond to local conflict dynamics. This government should play a supportive role in this. I want to thank you again for having me here today, and I look forward to your questions.